All right, let's talk about something that goes way beyond just learning syntax. We're going to talk about how to actually think like a coder. It's all about building the right mental pictures in your head so your code finally does what you want it to do. Let's get into it.
You've totally been there, right? You write some code, you look at it, and you're like, this is perfect. It has to work. But then you run it, and it just doesn't. Or it does something completely weird. It feels like you and the computer are just not on the same page. Well, the reason for that might surprise you. See, the problem usually isn't the code itself. It's not some sneaky typo or a missing semicolon. The real issue is the picture you have in your head. You're imagining the computer is doing one thing, when in reality, it's following a completely different set of rules. The secret is getting your mental picture to match reality. So, what even is a mental model? It's nothing fancy, really. It's just a simple analogy, a little story you tell yourself to understand a complex process. When you find the right story, the code suddenly clicks into place, and you can almost see the future. You know what it's going to do before you even run it. Okay, so let's dive into the first and maybe the most important mental model for any new web developer. This is all about the huge difference between your data and what you actually see on the web page. I want you to think about it like this. Your JavaScript data, all your variables and arrays, that's your private notebook. It's where you keep the real information, the source of truth. You can scribble in it, change things, plan everything out. Now the web page, the DOM, that's a public whiteboard. Just because you change something in your private notebook doesn't mean the whiteboard magically updates itself. You have to physically take your notes, walk over to the whiteboard, and redraw everything.
And that brings us to the golden rule. The DOM is just for show. It's a reflection. Your JavaScript notebook is the one and only source of truth. The whiteboard just shows what's in the notebook at a specific moment in time.
So, the correct way to do this, the proper workflow, always looks like this. 1. You start with your data in JavaScript. 2. You loop through it. 3. You turn each piece of data into some HTML. And 4. Only at the very end do you paint that result onto the DOM, the whiteboard, for the world to see. Data first, then DOM. Every single time.
All right, on to the next big mental hurdle. This is a huge one. It's asynchronous code, code that has to wait for something, like fetching data from a server. It doesn't work like a vending machine where you put your money in and get a snack out instantly. It's different. A really great way to think about this is like using a crock pot. You throw all your ingredients in, you turn it on, and then you walk away. You're totally free to go do other stuff for hours. The cooking just happens in the background. That is exactly how asynchronous code works. It kicks off a long-running task, but doesn't sit around waiting for it to finish. Okay, but here's the part that trips literally everyone up. When you ask for data from an API using something like fetch, you don't get the data back right away. No, what you get back is a promise. Think of it like a receipt or an IOU. It's a promise that the data will show up eventually.
And the best analogy for this is ordering a pizza. It's perfect. So at time 0, you place your order. That's your fetch call. You get a receipt back. That's your promise. Now, while you're waiting for the pizza, your JavaScript code doesn't just freeze. It keeps on running, doing other things. Then, finally, the delivery driver arrives with your food. That's when the code that actually needs the pizza, the code inside your .then block, can finally run.
So here's the bottom line, and you absolutely have to burn this into your brain. The data is only real after it's been delivered. It only exists inside that .then block. If you try to use that data anywhere outside of it, you're basically trying to eat a pizza that hasn't even arrived yet. It's imaginary food.
Okay, let's totally switch gears. It's not just JavaScript that has these mental models. CSS, the language we use for styling, has its very own way of thinking about space and how things should be laid out on a page.
For instance, how does an element like a div work by default? I love this analogy. The best way to picture it is as a snotty little diva. It demands its own personal line, it stretches out to take up the entire width, and it absolutely refuses to let anything else sit next to it. That's what display block really means.
Here's another CSS thing that drives people crazy: box sizing. The default behavior, content box, is like ordering a 200-pixel pizza, but what you get is a 200-pixel crust plus extra padding and a border hanging off the sides, making the whole thing bigger than you asked for. But with border box, when you order a 200-pixel pizza, everything, the crust, the padding, the border, all fits neatly inside that 200-pixel box. You get exactly the size you ordered. It's so much more predictable.
So we've looked at a few really useful models. But here's the thing. The real skill isn't just knowing these models. It's getting good at building your own.
so you can figure out any problem that gets thrown at you.
Because look, the goal isn't to be the best at Googling answers or copy-pasting from Stack Overflow. The real goal is to understand the fundamental patterns so deeply that you can build the solution yourself right from scratch just from what's in your head.
So how do you build that mental muscle? Here's a quick workout for you. First, write code by hand, in a notebook. No autocomplete, no spell check. It forces your brain to actually learn. Second, trace your code like you're the computer. Go line by line and say, okay, what's in this variable now? And third, explain your code out loud, even if it's just to a rubber duck. Speaking your logic solidifies it in your mind like nothing else.
And before you even think about fancy frameworks or complex algorithms, you need to be absolutely rock solid on these big 6 fundamentals. These are the Lego bricks of all programming. If you can build a really strong, simple mental model for each one of these, you'll have the foundation to build absolutely anything. So I'll leave you with a question, not for me, but for you. What's that one concept that's been bugging you, that just doesn't quite click? I want you to take a second and think. What's a simple story, a simple analogy you can create for it right now? Because that right there, that's your first step to really truly thinking like a coder.